Good afternoon to you all, our viewers. Welcome to the community show, which is hosted on the Civic Space TV. Thank you very much for being friends and lovers of the Civic Space TV, and thank you for being viewers of the community talk show. First and foremost, to our viewers who are tuning in for the first time, the community talk show is a show under the Civic Space TV, and by virtue of its name, you can understand or appreciate that the topics that we have are conversations around matters that affect the community directly. Issues of the Wananchi, issues of the ordinary Ugandan. Where I come from, there is something called Wango, and that is in Acholi. Wango is a setting where children and elders come around on a campfire every evening to discuss issues of the community. So the community show on Civic Space TV is equally more or less of the same. So if you're tuning in for the first time, please subscribe to our show and be sure that every Monday we shall bring you very constructive conversations regarding your communities. And to the panelist, Mr. Nelson Wekikye, we welcome you and I invite you to say hello to the viewers.
Hello.
Yes, how is Kassanda?
Kassanda is fine.
Yes.
We are trying to give service delivery to the community.
Yes.
Though we have other challenges which always hinder the smooth running of service delivery.
Yes, thank you very much. But we are confident that amidst the challenges, you're still soldiering on to ensure that government services reach out to Ugandans at their community and district level. Thank you very much for joining us, and we are glad to have you.
Welcome.
Yes. Just to introduce you to our viewers, Mr. Nelson Wekikye is the Chief Technical Officer, no, Chief Financial Officer, is that right? Of
it's true.
District Local Government. Yes, we are happy to have you today. Let me move on to Robert Kakuru Byamugisha. Comrade Kakuru is the Executive Director of Kick Corruption Out of Uganda, which is a civil society organization. And he has joined us this morning or this afternoon for this conversation. Mr. Kakuru, you're welcome. You can say hello to the viewers and maybe just introduce yourself further.
Thank you very much. My name is Robert Kakuru Byamugisha, as you have heard, the Executive Director, Kick Corruption Out of Uganda. It is a civil society organization whose mandate is to fight corruption and promote, protect human rights. We are based in Kabale, southwestern Uganda, in Kidega region, and that's where we operate, and partly part of Ankole, especially in Tungamo district. We do basically accountability work, and we are happy being part of this discussion. Thank you very much. And the viewers, be ready to share with us, listen to us, and we share our experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Kakuru. I will request that you put on your video so that our lovely audience can have the opportunity to see your face.
Mike?
Yes, please turn on your video so that we can be able to see you, sir. All right. Thank you. Many thanks to you once again. To the viewers and to the panelists, my name is Kidega Moses, and I shall be your moderator this afternoon on the community talk show on Civic Space TV. Thank you very much. Well, let's dive straight into today's conversation. Uganda has had a great history on its approach towards dealing with the eradication of poverty. We have seen statistics from Uganda Bureau of Statistics and from even World Bank that have indicated that Uganda's economy is continuously shrinking, and therefore the poverty levels are very high. With the emergence and the coming of COVID-19, the poverty levels, according to World Bank, have continuously increased, and our economic development continues to shrink, now at a level of less than 3% per annum, and yet it was progressive in the earlier years of 2015. The question now remains that what does government have in store towards reviving the economy and towards enabling the population to get out of poverty and increase household income. The government of Uganda, in its attempts to eradicate poverty, has had a couple of government programs. And today we are here to make an assessment and accountability of those government programs. To mention but a few, I have heard about the Bonaba Gagawale government program. I have heard of the Emyoga government program. I have heard of the Ntandikwa government program. And now we hear that is the parish development model. All these we believe are attempts towards eradicating poverty and increasing household income. There are so many other institutions that have been set aside by government to harness or coordinate agricultural activities, because we know that agriculture is the backbone of Uganda's economy, with about 68% of the country's population participating in agriculture. But agriculture only contributes 37% towards our GDP. So government has attempted to commercialize agriculture, to use modern techniques so that our agriculture sector is boosted. That is just to mention but a few. So today we are here to unpack, to digest, to do an accountability of these government programs. And I will begin straight away from our Chief Financial Officer of Kassanda District, Mr. Nelson Wekikye. Our audience today has heard me mention a few government programs that have been set aside to deal with poverty at household level. What does government have in stock for Ugandans? Maybe there's something I have not mentioned, and you could kick us off by giving us an overview about the government programs and how they work towards the target of eliminating poverty amongst the people. So I invite you, Mr. Nelson, an overview of government programs.
Thank you, sir. Kassanda is one of the newly created local government, was separate from the local government. So at the time of split in financial 1918-19, we came with other programs from Bovede. Like we had the Youth Livelihood Program, YLP, also had the UWEPU, that's the Uganda Women Enterprise Program. On top of that, when we were established, we came up with the Myoga. Myoga is very active in the district of Kassanda. Then another government program which is active. We have also the SDP, but this one is mainly tailored to assist, improve on the infrastructure, to improve on agriculture, let's say opening up roads and enhancing farmers with the good seedlings and the pesticides, so that they can improve on the output. And currently, we have the Parish Development Model, which is running, and it is a program which we are trying to implement. There are so many interventions. So that one is also on.
Nelson, just a minute. Could you adjust your camera? We are not seeing your face properly.
Yes.
Adjust the camera so that we can see your face fully. Can you
now you can see me properly.
Not fully. Maybe raise the camera high a little bit.
So what I was trying to say, with our district, we have a number of programs that the government had.
Mr. Nelson,
yes,
I can barely see your eyes. Are you seeing how I am? You can.
Yes,
see,
I can see you.
Can
yes.
see my face entirely.
Yes.
We are not seeing your face fully. We are only seeing above, just below the eyes. So if you
now you can see me.
No, adjust the camera.
Maybe I can change the location.
No, just adjust the camera. Your location is okay. Just the camera, just adjust it. Okay, now there, yes.
It is okay?
Yes, there is okay.
Yes. So I was trying to say that as Kassanda local government, we've benefited in a number of government interventions as far as enhancing the community incomes. and through Group C. And some of these programs, they are as old as since the district started, like the YLP, we have the UEPU, we have the Myoga. Now we have come up with the parish model, though they have come up with so many challenges, mainly the youth, when they're given the money. Mainly, they don't focus on the objective set for their particular groups. So they end up doing other programs. Then at the end of the day, you find that they may not achieve so much. And you find that where they fail to achieve the objectives they set at the beginning, still they end up not improving on their status or on their economy. So in Kassanda, all those programs are on running. Most especially the Myoga is on. The youth livelihood, the recovery rate is very, very, very poor. And I think this one is across even to other districts. When the youth got money, they channel it for other use other than the intended use. And that is a challenge. Where I would say that these programs, maybe at one time they were rushed. These youth, they were not prepared enough, and they were not guided by the technical, let's say, personnel. For example, if an enterprise is the agriculture talent, an agriculture officer would have been a lead person for that group. If it was, let's say, in carpentry, somebody in technical in carpentry would have been a lead person for that group before they disperse the money. But these groups get money before they even trained. So likewise, even this parish model, money is coming, they are preparing them to receive the money, but still the technical guidance, I think, should be the first thing before these people are given this money. The Myoga, they are trying, but still there are challenges. So that is Kassanda.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. Just stay there. I have a follow-up question for you.
Yes.
We all know that our population as a country is a very young population. Demographics show, or statistics show, that we are the third youngest country in the world. So what this means is that it is very difficult to have conversations around socio-economic transformation without the involvement of young people, active involvement. You've mentioned here that the young people were not prepared enough to be able to harness or participate or benefit from these government programs. That last year, there was a World Bank report that was released in June. And this report indicated that does Uganda have capacity to harness from its demographic transition? It's a young population, but can the country have the capacity to benefit from its young population in terms of productivity, in terms of innovativeness, in terms of how they embrace technology as an emerging trend towards driving economic development? So how best can government prepare young people? Because if you're saying that young people are not prepared, what is government doing to prepare these young people so that by the time these government programs come, they are ready to take them up, benefit from them, and make the most use of these government programs for their socio-economic transformation? So what is government doing to prepare them? Is there a mindset training that you're looking at? Are you looking at financial training, financial literacy? What is government doing to prepare young people, but by and large to prepare the population and community?
Thank you, sir. The younger population is so aggressive, and being so aggressive, they want to achieve results very fast. But achieving those results very fast, they need to be guided. So government has put into place so many structures. And through these structures, let's say if you come to a district, we have so many sectors, have so many departments. So if the community, like the community development would identify the interests of each group and that group is tailored to a technical person. If it is agriculture, then they shift to production. They pick somebody who is technical, takes through them before they are given funding. By the time they are given funding, they will be having that introductory knowledge of what they are going to do. But here is a group which was organized 2 weeks back or a month. Now is given funding, but without the other technical background of their interest. Because now the government has every structure in place at the district. If it is vet, it is there. If they are going into let's say carpentry, like bricklaying, all those ones there's someone at the district who can ably take them through to guide them technically before they are given the funds. By the time they receive the funds, they will be able to utilize that money along those lines. Other than, I would say they are so aggressive. Once they get the money, they will just start using it as they feel like without any guidance. So every structure is in place. So what I'm saying, let's make use of the government structures in place and involve the youth as they are, and there will be a turnaround, and you see everything progressing. By the time they are given the funds, at least before they are given the funds, let them have the basic knowledge. That is my argument.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. Just stay there. Let me bring in Comrade Robert Kakuru. Robert Kakuru, are you still with us? I hope you're still with us. Yes, thank you. I can see you put on your video and your audio as well. Now, you've heard what Comrade Nelson has said. He seems to be very intentional with regards to the efficiency and effectiveness of these government programs. To you, Comrade Robert, if you look at our financial year budget, government commits a lot of money towards some of these government and community programs like Myoga, like Parish Development Model, where now we hear that every parish will be allocated 100 million Uganda shillings per financial year. This is a lot of money, and this is taxpayers' money. So we must be concerned about issues around transparency, issues around accountability, issues around the monitoring and evaluation of these programs. From where you're seated, do you think, what is your level of analysis of the transparency and of the levels of accountability of these government programs?
Thank you very much. Dear viewers and the fellow panelists,
Mr.
I think
Kakuru,
this is...
We are not seeing your face. We are seeing, I don't know, something else.
I'm sorry, my camera, I've just been trying to work it on, but
Okay.
it can't be on. Maybe before we end this show, I apologize, we should have worked on it. It just shows that kind of background you are seeing. My apologies.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to say that thank you very much for inviting us for this very important discussion together with the CCG. I think this kind of partnership in analyzing what is going on in terms of development, especially at household level, and how the government intends to improve the people's welfare at household level is very, very important. Where I work, my day-to-day work, I interact with communities here in Chigezi, in Kabale. And it's very true that government has put different interventions, the way Nelson has clearly stipulated it. I want to agree with Nelson that the government has put different interventions to improve the household income, and they have put efforts. However, what we observe at the grassroots is that it doesn't depict the picture of the intention of our government to improve the household income. In a sense that if you see the most current one now, the Parish Development Model and its structure and how it intends to implement this government effort. For example, if you say we about 42 trillion Uganda shillings has been earmarked to support the parish development model. And then 100 million, as we have said, is per parish is going to receive 100 million shillings, but 29 million.
Did you say 42 trillion has been earmarked?
I said
for
in the budget, in the national budget.
42 trillion or billion?
No, billion. I'm sorry. 42
yes.
billion. Yeah?
Yes.
I'm sorry. 42 billion has been earmarked, and 100 million per parish. And then we see 29 million is earmarked for operations. That is, you see, for the management, people are going to provide the administration of this model. And once you see, even its intention, it is a revolving fund. If you get this money, you will have to take it back. So it is a loan. And in that regard, we have had experiences like in Tandikwa, like Bonawagagaware, people accessing funds and they do not return the funds. They don't serve the purpose. Some mismanage the funds, and the experience here is that most of the funds have been mismanaged. The most current one is the youth fund, where some youth here in Kabale and some other districts were arrested, and the funds were not, were not reimbursed as intended, and therefore there are quite a number of management challenges when you are implementing these funds. So the structure, the parish development model that is on the table at the moment is that the structure, first of all, it is being put in place. If you see that it will be at parish level, it will be chaired by the chairman LC2, and then the sub-county, the parish chief will be the secretary, the technical person, and then some other members, chairperson, LC1. The question was, in a parish, for example, here in Kabale, we have sub-counties where you find a parish has 22 villages. That means if every chairman LC1 is to be a member, it will be a committee, a big committee. And our sense is that these committees in Uganda have always wanted to first of all get the lion's share. And our fear is that this money may not end up reaching the household income, and the story may look the same. So recently we had a meeting at the district where we had, it is called the District Integrity Promotion Forum. It is an accountability forum that has been put in place by the President's office under the Ethics and Integrity, and I know members could have interfaced with it. So that mechanism we were sharing about the same. How is this going to happen? But as people in the accountability work, what issues do we realize? The first issue is how these funds are going to be managed, and the people at community access them. What mechanism are they going to use? These are some of the things that we are still seeing, that at that level, we are likely to see, if you don't know someone at the committee, you may not end up accessing these funds clearly. And some have started raising issues of political issues, which is part of the political accountability, that if you don't belong to a ruling party, it will not be easier for you to access these funds because of the nature of this structure that will be in charge of this fund. So all these are accountability fears, and you see, because of COVID-19, we are not even seeing enough awareness about this. I think Nelson and others who are in administration, I think they need to educate us. How is this going to be administered, so that everyone is aware of what is going on, everyone is ready to access or apply for the funds, and how will the revolving process go, and how will this be managed by these funds being transferred from one beneficiary to another, so that all households benefit from this. And maybe if you see the web that Nelson was talking about, web has quite a number of challenges. You see, we have been doing what we call what we call, we've been monitoring these funds at the sub-county level, at community level, those who have benefited, and also monitoring in the schools. What do we find out? You find out that there is quite a list of beneficiaries, but if you continue to go deep down at village level, let me go and see whether Nelson benefited from this. You find the story is different. Some say, I applied, it is true, but I haven't received the funds. But in the records, they show that Nelson has received the funds. And these are some of the big questions that we need to ask ourselves as people in the accountability and people who are supporting the government to make sure that our people access these funds and then develop themselves. Maybe lastly, on my side, is to say that how within this COVID-19, how do we intend to engage the end users at community level? Are we going to have interface meetings over the funds? Are we going to have organized such a virtual meeting so that our people at community level know what is going on, the way we are sharing this? How is the awareness mechanism? How is it intended to be implemented? And those are some of the questions that are being discussed. But also, you see big chunks of money in different reports, like the IGG report, like the Auditor General's report. We were analyzing the Auditor General's report and some internal auditors' reports in Kanungu, for Kanungu district, for Kisoro district, and then for Kabale district. What are the issues which are there? Some funds being misallocated and mismanaged, and internal auditors and the Auditor General's report is bringing out all of this, but the enforcement to make sure that these resources are returned is still a big question, and that's where a lot of corruption is identified and lots of issues hence develop affecting the household development. Thank you very much, my brother.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Kakuru. I love the energy with which you have submitted your opening remarks. Comrade Nelson, you had left us shortly, but I'll get you up to speed with what our colleague was trying to say. First of all, he did appreciate the fact that government is trying to have all these programs in terms of poverty eradication and improving household income amongst our people. But he had big concerns around the issues of accountability and issues around the high costs of administration. That, for example, Nelson, as the Chief Financial Officer of Kassanda, the cost of administration of these government programs is very high, okay? He also said that there are looming fears in the population and community that there is political management of these government programs. That if you cannot legitimately identify yourself as someone who is leaning to the ruling party, it might be hard for you to access some of these government programs, which is a very challenging thing, and we must be able to address it as a people. Now, just respond to those two things. One, the issue of the high costs of administration. Two, the political management of these government funds. Is it true that these funds are only being sidelined for people who are pro-NRM, and those who are not NRM are being sidelined from accessing these funds? If so, why? Okay. I think Nelson's network is jamming. Nelson, can you hear us?
Yes, there's groups. And this is a very, very big challenge we are facing. So we need so many other interventions to ensure that before funding is released, these groups are well prepared. But the political interventions, maybe they're there. But when it comes to the time of screening, they will have to make sure that all the parameters are in place before the groups are given the funding. That is my submission there.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Nelson. I believe you've done justice in terms of trying to elaborate the looming fears that are coming up from the population. Let me come back to you, Comrade Kakuru. Comrade Kakuru, on the issues of accountability, we all know that in our constitution, we have the Anti-Corruption Act. We have the Inspectorate of Government. We even have now the State House Anti-Corruption Unit that was launched in 2018. And all these efforts have been geared geared towards effective accountability and to avoid misuse of public funds. Do you think these institutions have the capacity indeed to hold public officers accountable, or to indeed follow up on public resources cent by cent? Do they have the capacity, or do you think they have failed, and that is why NGOs like yours that now call themselves Keep Corruption Out of Uganda are coming up? Are you coming up as an alternative? Hello.
Hello.
We are losing Moses.
Yes.
Moses, can you hear me?
Robert and Nelson, just 1 second. Sorry, our
Yes.
network is equally not stable. So
Yeah,
you
we
will
are
forgive us
for
for
some
the on and off, sir. But to you, Robert Kakuru, let me just complete my question. Do you think these government institutions, like the IGG, like the Anti-Corruption State House Unit, do they have the backbone and capacity to indeed hold government institutions or government officials accountable for public or taxpayers' money? Or do you think they are falling short of their responsibility and mandate, and that is why NGOs like yours are coming up and saying that kick corruption out of Uganda? Are you coming up because there is a void, or you're coming up only to support the work of these anti-corruption government units? Over to you, Mr. Robert.
Thank you very much, Moses and colleagues and viewers. It's very true that the government has put in place anti-corruption mechanisms to really combine our efforts and combat corruption. And actually, in every other intervention, there's always a proposed mechanism on how accountability can be catered for and how in the fight against corruption generally. But your question about these anti-corruption agencies, whether state or non-state actors like us, you very well know that the big question we have been fighting is the political interest in the fight against corruption. It is a big, big question that our political leaders don't see this as most of them don't see this as an issue that has greatly affected the development of this country and up to the household level. Because even some of us who are in this work, the statement that was mentioned by our head state president the other day when we had an anti-corruption week, that okay, we know we have corrupt people, but at least they invest in this country. It got different mixed ideas and interpretations. And we're like, oh, is it okay being corrupt and you invest locally? Is it okay? Is it really like a value one should cherish that adds value in development, provided you're investing at home? And others were like, maybe he's saying we just need to analyze this. A statement from our head of state brought mixed ideas, and especially to us. So with this, if it comes to lower local governments, you will find that the challenge we need to address is the political will to fight this vice that is affecting most of the developmental processes. And the capacity of these institutions, I want to tell you that to us, the capacity is there. Because if you see the legal framework that has been put in place, especially now we have what we call asset recovery. The asset recovery mechanism, if it was properly enforced, then we are not going to continue realizing the mismanagement of public funds, because if you mismanage it, automatically it is reimbursed by selling your assets or by, they put different mechanisms of making sure that the funds, public funds come back. So the capacity is there, the interest is there within the institutions, but the political support, the voice to support this mechanism is still lacking. If I may say, it is still low. And that's where we have an issue. But also the awareness mechanism to our public to bring the citizen in a place to participate in the fight against this vice of corruption is still another gap that needs to be addressed, so that the citizens are brought within the seat of fighting this vice that affects all of us in terms of development, but also tarnishing our image, whether with our different development partners. If you see, for us who have different development partners, the question is, they will have a question of trust as a country, a question of trust as beneficiaries because of this element of corruption. So I think capacity is there, the political interest is still lacking, and we are saying also awareness and involvement of citizens is still a gap, because citizens should actually monitor development work. For example, if it comes to open contracting, the contracts at the local government level, where the end user is Moses, people do not know some of these contracts, how they are given out, how they are managed, who manages them, are they theirs? This is why most of the public projects are disowned by the citizens. I think that is another modality that we need to bring in place to fight against this corruption, and also support these mechanisms to be functional, and the political interest to be willing to support this. And with all of that, I'm sure corruption will be combated. Thank you very much, Moses.
Yeah, thank you, Comrade Robert. I love the spirit with which you speak against corruption. Comrade Nelson, I'm going to come back to you. You've heard what our friend Robert has said. He has said that the institutions are there, but there is lack of political will. You're not a politician, yes. You are a technical personnel, but you work with politicians. You work with the LC5, you work with the district councillors, the district speakers, all those are politicians. Do you see some goodwill in them in terms of the fight against corruption? Do they have the political goodwill, or you agree with what Robert is saying, that there is no political goodwill from our political leaders? So from the local government perspective, do our leaders at that level have the political goodwill to fight corruption?
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, government has put into place structures, like in a district. There are so many organs which are in place, range from the office of the chairperson, LC5 with the executive. Then when we go down, we have.
Okay, Nelson, can you hear us? Okay, Comrade Robert Kakuru, are you there?
I'm on.
Okay, I think Nelson is having issues with his network. I can see him, but I cannot hear what he's saying. Nelson, can you unmute? Unmute and you speak. Unmute?
Yes.
Okay. Robert, let's give Nelson a chance to complete, then I'll come back to you. Yes, Nelson, proceed.
Yeah, so all these structures which are in place, office of the RDC, office of the DSO, office of the chairperson, the executive, their major role is monitoring these government programs and see that they're efficiently and effectively implemented. So you find that the office of the chairperson, they are like full-time workers. So whatever is being implemented, they are the first person to receive all the information. And that information, as the first at is, it assists to mitigate any issue that might go wrong before the implementation is complete. So these organs which are already in place, they are already in place, unless someone has no will, like personal issue. But the offices are gazetted. You find the RDC is on Myoga. You find the RDC is already in UWEPU. They're everywhere. So is the office of the DSO, so is the office of the chairperson of LC5. We have even a secretary in charge gender, where most of those programs are being implemented. So what I'm trying to say, that these offices here, they're in place. So what is lacking may be information gap, information sharing, up to the level of at national level. And even the center also monitors these programs. I normally see they come, ask for reports, even Auditor General. When they're auditing every financial year, they go through, it's one of their parameters they look at. They look at youth, livelihood, UWEPU, Myoga, all those programs, and they report. And in those reports, that's where other organs maybe come in, like IGG, follow up those reports of these other stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Nelson. I will have a follow-up question for you just later on, but let me first pick Kakuru's mind on something. Comrade Kakuru, some of the institutions in Uganda are being run by either retired or serving military officers. We all know that the UPDF has a very good history of discipline. And you'd imagine that when they are placed at the helm of some of these institutions that are meant to help Ugandans, you would imagine that they would perform their duties with utmost transparency and utmost discipline. Let's speak about the Operation Wealth Creation that government continuously invests so much money in, but its leadership really from the top is either of former or of current serving military officers. We know that the Deputy National Coordinator of the Operation Wealth Creation is General Kavuma, okay, a serving military officer. What do you think about the involvement of the UPDF in civilian, or in at least what you'd imagine to be civilian-centered initiatives? Do you think it has enabled us effectively improve accountability and transparency? Or do you think it is not something that we should look at as a positive thing as a country? So to you, Robert Kakuru.
Thank you very much, Moses, and the dear listeners. First of all, to us who are doing accountability development work, we think in Operation Wealth Creation, we have been doing some monitoring in that area to see how beneficiary access those inputs and who benefits, and do they anyway benefit, how contracts entered. And these are our observations that in the first place, the army, whether retired or in service, being involved, to us, it looks unconstitutional. Because what is the constitutional mandate of the army of Uganda? It is very clear. We see that it is overlapping mandate, which should be implemented by other organs, government organs, which are clearly stated constitutionally. And then you give it to someone else with a reason of thinking that the other organ will be more transparent and accountable and all of that. So the abuse of the legal framework in that regard, to us as citizens, we think there is a big, big gap to address on that. And what does this one create? Do you understand that if it comes to district level, where my friend Nelson is, we have seen that chief administrative officers, the accounting officers, they are actually in a little bit dilemma. You find them also on their desks confused a little bit and with a fear, because when you are administering a policy where you have some fears or protecting some interest somewhere for the good of your job, you are actually not enjoying the job in regard of in the line of providing services to the people. For example, some contracts or agreements we have come across around operational creation in agriculture. A district, a cow enters a contract with a contractor, but resources to pay this contractor are not disbursed to the district. Nelson will agree with me or don't agree with me. Nelson, who is an accounting officer, enters a contract with a contractor on behalf of the beneficiaries at the district level. But when Nelson at our district bank accounts, he does not have those resources to manage. Resources, the funds are managed by the center somewhere, but for you, you are only directed to handle the paperwork. We think that one in terms of administration and management is a big gap. If we are engaging you as people in the district, that how much funds do we have? Where are they? This contract is being mismanaged. This is why you will find a feedback to provide. And I think that one in accountability is a very big gap that you and I, the operational wealth creation system, and the fear of the public to fear the army officers managing this, I want to tell you, people speak out or may not speak out, but it is not as easy as interacting with Nelson, who is the chief administrative officer of my district. Then the other one is the input, how they bring out the wish lists. You see, if you raise someone's interest high, that you write down what you think we should provide for you to improve your household income, and then this person has high interest. At the end of it, when we don't deliver to the expectation of this person, I think one, they lose trust in the person who made them write the whole of this list. They lose trust in their own government. They lose trust in the systems and the mechanisms that are being put in place to uplift their development. Hence, that's why you see our population now, they do not have a zeal. They do not have appetite of getting involved in some of these interventions suggested by government. And even it is going to the end of other development partners, they think it is not possible. They think it is really not realistic. And I think you and I, we need to be very genuine around discussing these issues and see in operational wealth creation. It is even in mining, my friend Moses. If it goes to mining, in mining, there are quite a number of related issues. If it comes to where Nelson expects, I'm forgetting how we call this, maybe Nelson will remind me. There are funds which are supposed to be given to the local governments, and from the mining perspective, it is called something. I would just remind the know the word. Those funds up to sub-county level, up to district level, when they are planning and budgeting, they say we have not received these funds. And I know where Nelson comes from. This question is big. So I think in these discussions, if we become very genuine with ourselves, so that there are accountability issues, we don't know even the human resource mechanism that is managing some of these things, and it affects the grassroots, the household beneficiaries to access these, and that's why the IGG's report brings out that there is high corruption, syndicated corruption, which is, that's why there are issues like land grabbing. Someone is having land, you don't know the owner, you can't access, and even the district leadership do not know who accesses, for example, this mining place. And these are still big issues, Moses, for you and I and Nelson and listeners to think about. Accessing a mining permit is a dream in this country. Small mining groups here registering them. I think where I am, some have been struggling to get registered. It is still a question. I must guess also where Nelson comes from, that side. I think Kassanda and the like, I think Kassanda groups were registered, but somewhere it is still a struggle in this area, I mean, this part of the country. Thank you, Moses, for that. But I felt like I needed to highlight a few of those things to Nelson to share with us as a technical person, but also the viewers.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Kakuru. I think you've been very elaborate in your presentation. Nelson, I had promised you a follow-up question earlier on, and here it is. Yes. Many Ugandans have argued that our government seems to do the same thing, but expect different results. We have had the Bonavagagawale, we have had the Entandikwas, and they have all not seemed to have tangible benefits and tangible results. Most recently, we have had the Emyoga, and now we are having something else called the Parish Development Model. Could you help our viewers understand the difference between Parish Development Model and the previous government interventions that we have been seeing? What is unique about Parish Development Model that Ugandans should look up to and have optimism that, okay, Parish Development Model is here and it will do better than Emyoga, better than Entandikwa, better than Bonaba Gagawale? What is different about this government program? And should Ugandans be optimistic anyway?
Thank you very much. All those other programs you've mentioned are tailored at poverty eradication. So is the parish development model. The unique aspect in the parish development model is the way the government now has handled it. It is now in a formal way, because that with recruiting of technical staff qualified going to the resources, and the funding has channeled through the technical, let's say, sector that's now in production, where you find that our communities, they are tied to agriculture. So any enterprise which is going to be done through these groups, at least there will be enhanced with a technical backup. So what I'm seeing at this time around, like I mentioned earlier as we were starting, that before money is dispersed, there will be some training. There is a lot of logistics that has been put in place before the kickstart of the program. So right now, they are recruiting parish chiefs to manage. The funding is through production department, where we have so many sectors: veterinary, entomology, agriculture, all sorts. So you find that no element in the community, in any group, which will not be catered for technically. So I think this time the intervention the government is taking, and even the management itself, if now the chief administrative office is now empowered, and now the RDC is there, the DSO is there, the political wing is involved in the exercise. Every stakeholder has been brought on board this time around. Unlike Mioka, where like the directive were from top, bottom. By this time, everything is being managed at the grassroots. I think that's the unique part of it.
Okay, thank you. I will have a follow-up to that as well. Let me come to you, Kakuru Robert. You've heard what Nelson has said. Nelson seems to be very intentional in terms of convincing us that the parish development model is going to make a difference. But he has also mentioned about how so many stakeholders are involved: the DSO, the RDC, the parish chiefs, and all those institutions. Do you think this is too bureaucratic, or do you think the bureaucracy in some of these programs? Yes, yes, Kakuru, can you hear me? Yes, Kakuru, can you hear me? Okay, I was saying that you've heard what Comrade Nelson has said, that this time round, every stakeholder is involved. The DSOs are involved, the RDCs are involved, the parish chiefs are involved, there is a parish committee, there is a technical wing, and there are so many stakeholders involved. Do you think that this is too bureaucratic? Oh, I see we have lost Comrade Kakuru. Okay, he's back. Kakuru, are you there with us?
Moses, you were on and off?
Yes. Can you hear me well now?
Yes, I can hear, but before you were on and off.
Okay. Okay, let me just rephrase the question. Our colleague here, Nelson, seems to be very intentional with regards to convincing us that the parish development model is going to work for Ugandans. And in his attempt to convince us, he said that the parish development model is an all-inclusive program. It has the GSOs involved, it has the RDC involved, there is a parish chief involved, there is the community is involved, there are so many stakeholders involved. But in the past, there's been the question around the bureaucracy involved in some of these government programs, that for you to access some of these government capital and government funds, there is too much paperwork involved. Do you think bureaucracy has given room for corruption? That in this so much paperwork is where we find people being limited from accessing these government resources, or it's where some of these monies disappear in paperwork. So speak about the bureaucracy in terms of access to these government community programs. Over to you, Kakuru.
Thank you very much, Moses. I have, where I am here on my desk, I have a list of the members who compose the parish development model. I may not go through it, but I will just say that the chair is the LC2 chairman, and then the parish chief acts as the technical person, the secretary, then chairperson for women, then chairperson for youth, chairperson for disability, chairperson for NRM in the parish, then we have opinion leader, the number. Now, the interest in this is that this will work out, Moses, if resources are managed by the districts. If resources like the 42 billion is disbursed to the districts, to the local governments, and they are managed by the districts. But if this is going to be managed by the center, the way operational wealth creation does, we are just going to see no difference. If the administration of this is going to be centralized, we don't expect these resources and the autonomous, these committees, if they are allowed to function, because we have seen some other structures being put in place and they are not given mandate to operate. If they say, if our government is committed and they are saying that these existing structures, existing government structures are going to, they are the same, they are going to work through to implement this, and funds are at the district, and these chief administrative officers are concerned, and accountability committees like the district integrity promotion forums are involved, we are going to see a difference. But also, as I had said, is our fear of these committees, 7 of them, picking interest to be first beneficiaries. That's where questions will begin, accountability questions will begin, and the interest. Someone was asking a question actually yesterday, that why was the chairperson NRM for each parish? Why was, as a political party person, why on this committee? Why could he say that the representative of a political party, maybe if it is the NRM, FDC, or what, rather than specifying to one party? It was a debate, it was a question. Because this person may say, I want my people of the party to benefit, and it influences this committee. And if you see such a, people start thinking ahead of what could happen. And I think if that is done, Moses, we are going to see a difference. But if it is not done, we are not going to see any difference. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Kakuru. Let me come to you, Nelson. First of all, is it true that the NRM chairperson is a member of that Parish Development Committee?
Yeah, he's a member on the composition of the Parish Development Committee. NRM has a representative on the committee. And
what was the background? Why was the structure thought about to be in that manner? What is the reason behind it?
Yeah.
Yes, what is the reason behind having the NRM chairperson be a member of this Parish Development Committee? What was the logic and reasoning behind that decision? Maybe you could tell our viewers.
Hello.
Yes, Nelson, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now I can hear you.
Okay, good. So, Comrade Kakuru mentioned that the Parish Development Committee has the NRM chairperson as a member of the committee. And I asked you if that is true, and you confirmed and said, yes, it is true. So now my question to you is that, what was the rationale and the logic, or what was the reason behind having a party chairperson being involved in such a committee that we believe is supposed to be non-partisan? Do you think that involvement creates fear in the population that they will be sidelined if they are not pro-NRM from accessing these government programs? So just speak to the reason, to the logic why it was done like that, but also answer the question of, does this constitution of the committee somehow affect accessibility of these government resources? Over to you, Nelson.
Thank you. But before I answer that question, there were guidelines which were formulated. And you find that all local governments, they're implementing a guidelines. This guideline was developed at the national, at the center. So you find that some of these issues which you are implementing, the guidelines, the decisions were made at the center. So like opting a member of the NRM, there could be some key reasons at the center. So after they developed the guidelines, they have forwarded those guidelines to the district for implementation. So you find that all those other modalities, they're embedded in those guidelines. So, but when it comes to why should a party member, you know, I think it's the interest of the government to ensure that the program is well implemented. Because since there are so many key stakeholders on board, each key stakeholder has a responsible person to whom to report. That's why you have the RDC as well report, the DSO, the CAR also has his channel of reporting. Everybody, even if it comes to audit, Chairperson also has a channel of reporting. I think that's why we're having so many other people's, like you can see disability, yeah, those other people, interest groups, they are being co-opted on, so that when they are implementing guidelines, certain groups are not marginalized.
Yes, thank you very much. Kakuru, I can see your hand is up. I am going to come to you shortly. Let me first pose a follow-up question to Mr. Nelson. Nelson, yes, you were not involved in the process of establishing the guidelines. I agree. Yes. But then what is your analysis? Does the community have every reason to have reservations and fears that they will be sidelined? And that is what Robert was saying earlier on, that these government programs are being sidelined for only people who are pro-NRM. So do you think having the NRM chairperson somehow justifies the argument of Kakuru that the population is having fears that they will be sidelined and these programs will only benefit NRM leaning community members? Kakuru, I'll come to you shortly. I can see your hand is up. Let me first give Nelson just 1 minute to respond, then I'll come to you, Kakuru.
I think the composition of the committee is for inclusion of every key person, so that every group is catered for. Hello.
Yes, Nelson, we can hear you.
Yes. So I don't see any issue which can deter or maybe. Hello.
Yes, hello. Continue, yes, Nelson.
Yes. So what I'm seeing what I'm looking at the composition of this committee is every key person on the committee is looking at the interest of each member in the committee, so that every member in the committee can equally benefit from this funding. For example, the funding itself is going to be given to the group in the parish, and it is a revolving fund. You take and return. They manage their own funding. At the end of the day, everybody must be able to achieve. But what I thought is remove this marginalization, disability, then these other interest groups like the NRM. I think that to see that everybody is on board, they have to report. I don't think that there will be somebody saying that you are not NRM, you are not a beneficiary. No, I think they are just there for follow-up and for ensuring that everything has been done as per the guidelines.
Okay, thank you very much. And to the viewers you've heard, Nelson says that there will be no segregation in terms of accessing these government funds that are meant to aid you at your community level. Robert, your hand was up. Let me give you a minute or two to tell us what you want us to hear. Yes, Robert, on to you. Your hand was up.
Moses, this is a very interesting question that Nelson is explaining. We recently had the same argument. We had a radio talk show. But like where I come from, for example, my parish is called the Chanamen in the Kabale district. And my whole sub-county is NRM. And I don't want to mention whether I'm NRM or not, but give that example to say that, like, my chairman LC2 is NRM. My parish chief, you see, to recruit here as a parish chief, the Nelson is. Also, there is a mechanism of some people will want to know where do you subscribe. Let me keep that one in the for the Nelson's interest. And the chairperson for women in my parish is NRM. Chairperson for youth is NRM. Chairperson for disability is NRM. Chairperson for NRM, Patrick. An opinion leader, of course, that one you can guess. And I want to tell you, if these people are seated, why can't they agree? One of the other DCs was presenting and was saying, once the parish development model is on, the NRM has come to thank its people, which means if you don't belong there, you may not be thanked by accessing these funds. I want the fear from the community. If that scenario comes up, how don't you think it is going to affect a cross-cutting development intention of this loan? And the approval of the loan, why can't they first say, Nelson or Moses, we know where you belong, so we better give Kakuru who belongs to us, because the committee is composed by the same. So these fears, Moses, are here in the public domain, at community level. So if they come up, if they good enough, we are discussing them before they occur. If they come up, they will develop, they will affect the intention of this grant, of this fund, and therefore it will not do much as we expect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Robert. That was a very passionate submission, I must say. Comrade Nelson, you've heard what Robert is saying, that the fears are with the community and they are going to be there. But to us as citizens, our concern is that government programs must benefit all citizens, irrespective of their political attachment. So what strategy at local government level are you employing so that the community fears are dealt away with and anyone and everyone can benefit from these government programs? Are there certain strategies that you're thinking about? Are you thinking about these things, or you've also left it to nature to take its course, or you're being intentional about maybe sensitizing the community, you're going to talk shows to convince the community that this is their program irrespective of their political attachment? What are your strategies at local government level?
What has taken place, there has been sensitization and the training, so that these people are going to they properly understand the guidelines. The parishes who are going to have been taken through the guidelines, all of key stakeholders. So these workshops and the seminars, these key stakeholders who are going to be on the ground have already started. So I think those are going to reduce some of the fears, and we should not expect the fears before we reach implementation. We may even fail the implementation. So what I'm saying should be positive. Let's look at the guidelines. Maybe the issue would be, what are the shortcomings in the guidelines? What is lacking in the guidelines? So if there are issues with the guidelines, then we should look at the issues in the guidelines. We send them back for amendments so that they are well aligned. But as per now, sensitization is on for key stakeholders, especially those who are going to implement the program. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nelson. Kakuru, let me come back to you. Kakuru, there is a famous saying that goes that leaders are only a reflection of their community. That if you want to know what a community looks like, look at the leaders that they elect, look at the leaders that they choose. So if you're saying that, Kakuru, that our leaders are corrupt, it means that even the people are corrupt. Okay, the community is corrupt. And I want to partially agree with this school of thought, because you've heard what Nelson has said. Nelson said that the parish development model and these other funds like the youth livelihood program are a revolving fund, meaning you're supposed to get the money, use it, make profit, and then return the money. Okay, but he has also said that there has been a low recovery rate, that people get this money, misuse it, and don't care about paying back. So meaning at times the people are failing the government. Okay, in that even when government tries to have these programs, the people still get the money, misuse it, and do not care about repaying back. And that is why Nelson will tell you that there is a low recovery rate of these government programs. Speak about the corruption of the people. Do you think that even we as a population, we as a community, our DNA is corrupt, and that is why we elect corrupt leaders, and that is why even when government avails us with these funds, we get them, misuse them, and don't pay back? So do you think corruption is not only at the top, but also within the community? Kakuru, on to you. And as someone who works in anti-corruption, do you focus only on the anti-corruption of government officials, or you're also interested in the anti-corruption of the members of the community? On to you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Moses. It's very true. Corruption is even biblical. It has not started today or yesterday. It is biblical. So the citizens, our population, corruption lives with us. It has even penetrated up to a church level, where someone who has even been pronounced corrupt is recognized high in the church, is given a front seat in the church, is glorified in a community, showing that community also have decided to adopt this to be part of the system. And that's where we have, you and I have a great work to make sure that sensitization, awareness meetings, and actually awareness to handle. Now, Moses, for us who are in the anti-corruption work, we have resorted and advised government, and government, it's good that they have also adopted some of our ideas, that we need to do a preventive measures of corruption by educating our people, by doing sensitization, involving them, rather than doing reactionary to follow our people who have already mismanaged the public resources. Following them up is not easy. It is something that is very, very challenging. So I wanted to say that the population, that's why we have what I may call forms of corruption or types of corruption. They are not at the same level. At community level, corruption is there, but it goes on growing big in its own forms until when it becomes a brand corruption. I don't think that there is anyone at community level who is a citizen who is involved in a brand form of corruption. No. Even at institutional level, if you come to police and the like, the recent report showed that the corruption that is so high is now involved in big contracts work, and contracts which are centrally procured, and the contracts which, that's where a big corrupt, that's why we involve in leaders. That's where it is. But anyway, to answer the question is that corruption is at all levels, but at different forms. And when it reaches within our leaders who access big resources of our country, that's why they mismanage big resources, and hence affect the corruption, and also they contribute to low income levels at household level. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Robert. I'll come back to you shortly, and you will have to explain to us why your organization is not doing so much in terms of sensitizing the community on the effects of corruption. But on to you, Nelson. Nelson, the president last week addressed the country, and he announced about the full reopening of the economy, And I must say the country is excited about, getting back to their livelihood and things like that. But also, schools are going to reopen on Monday. I know that every district has an education officer, and you're the chief financial officer, meaning that at least you are aware about the resources that come and leave the district. Has government set aside maybe an education fund so that our parents who were hit strongly by COVID-19, our parents who lost their jobs during COVID-19, our parents who, because of COVID-19, could not work and now cannot afford to pay the very high school fees? Is there an education fund that is being considered by government at district level so that our parents can have access to these soft loans to pay tuition for their children? Is it a thought that is somewhere in the corridors of local government, or we are dreaming to even think that our government can provide for us an education fund at district level? So on to you.
Thank you for that. Maybe to respond that, government already has its structured elements of education. We have USE, we have UPE, and for the tertiary institutions. What I know, there is no special fund at the district which is going to help the parents, maybe because of COVID, that to cater part of the tuition for the children. But what the government has done is paying tuition as UPE and USE for every pupil or student in the class. And as they reopen, what I'm very much aware, they have already catered for funds for SOPs before the schools open on Monday. That fund is already available with the schools. Then there is a renovation of schools. Assessment has been done to know the status of schools, repairs, and that one is going to be done very soon. And I've released the money for capitation grant, UPE and USA by the beginning of the term. Next week, all this funding will be in schools. And that money is tailored to the pupil in class. So I don't expect, unless it's a private school, headmaster asking a parent to make additional tuition fees on top of that. So government has already put everything in place. If there is a private arrangement in the school, let's say maybe boarding section, that one is separate. But for the learning of the child in the class, everything as the schools open has already put in place. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Nelson. Robert, let me come to you. You've heard what Nelson has said, that for at least the universal primary education and the universal secondary education, government has put aside resources to enable the schools jumpstart or to enable them get back to fully reopening and educating our young people. I am sure you're a parent. Is this something that should excite us as parents? Okay, I'm not a parent, but I mean parents. Do you think parents who are, at least some parents who are sending their children to these government institutions, is this some good news for them? And what lies ahead for the private citizens or for the private paying parents? So your analysis on the government initiative, but also what lies ahead for our private parents?
I think, Nelson, you and I come.
Yes, Robert, we can hear you.
From different communities. Hello?
Yes, Robert.
Yes, okay. I was saying that we need to appreciate government for the initiatives it has put in place to make sure that Ugandans access education at whatever level. That it's a plus, it's okay. But again, we need to agree together and say there are still lots of gaps within the education system. For example, the policy on regulating fees, whether at private or public public level in those institutions. You see, parents now, we are hustling. There is no any regulation that sets a cap or a ceiling on how much, whether private or public fees each institution should pay. And you see, you find these institutions in the same locality. For example, they are all in Kawempe. But being in Kawempe, one is paying 1.2 million, one is paying 700, the other one is 200. What brings the difference when the environment is the same? That's something we need to analyze. And across the country, even these public institutions like universal primary education, I mean government primary schools and government secondary schools. I want to tell that in these schools they are paying. Some children are pulling out of schools. They are dropping out of schools because they can't afford the contributions that are there in terms of school fees and other charges. And no one is, the government is silent about this. The other day, the first lady, the education minister, had started speaking about coming out with a policy that regulates this. But where is it, Moses? Where is it, Nelson? It's not there. So school dropout is increasing because the parents can't afford. The orphans, of course, they cannot totally afford. We are not seeing also other initiatives coming out to support those who can, like the vulnerable children and the like. And a biggest question on development partners are coming up to support our education system. We are seeing some challenges. Some that come, they are attributed to a political affiliation and they are stopped to operate. And this is affecting actually the private sector. It comes to NGOs. They are operations and registering you and deregistering you and all of that kind of fear that the NGOs work in. All of you live in Uganda, you know. Some 54 were suspended last time, including those that support education. So I think if there is no a framework, a policy that regulates this in terms of school fees and other charges that are in schools, we are continuing to see Ugandans, younger Ugandans, children dropping out of school, not completing education support.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Robert. We are moving towards the end of our talk show, so just the next 15 minutes we should be done. Let me come to you, Nelson. Nelson, so many children will not be able to go back to school on Monday. And there are so many reasons. Of course, the biggest and cross-cutting issue is the failure to raise the tuition that has been hiked by these private institutions. But also there are other community issues that are going to impede or affect students from going back to school. Issues like teenage pregnancies of our girls, issues like drug abuse of our young boys, issues like young people who have now resorted into, doing businesses in their villages and in their communities. This category is not being talked about, and yet they are equally not going to be able to go back to school. What at local government level, are there certain programs, certain rehabilitation programs that are being set aside to ensure that these young people who have been affected by teenage pregnancies, by drug abuse, are rehabilitated and prepared to join their colleagues on Monday to go back to school? Or you're only focusing on the issue of tuition and leaving out the other social challenges of the community? So on to Nelson, on to you.
Thank you for that issue. Of recent, there is, I think it was an NGO or a related sector in the Ministry of Education. They were moving around training the head teachers and some school management chairpersons on how to handle the affected students, especially those who have gone into business, those who have got pregnant, so that they are rehabilitated and returned back to school. So, the other time we were discussing the same issue, the DCDO has a program with the DO within the community, so that these children who have being engaged in these small pet businesses, now that they are earning some small money, they may not be have diverse interest to go back to class. So with other training and the kind of program which is being developed at the district, they want to go community to community, convince those children to go back irrespective of the effects. It's not easy the way they were presenting it. It has also some other challenges like funding, talking even to the parents, and it also needs involvement of the parent of the child, because you can't talk to the child and leave out the parent, because the parent has to be convinced first before the child can be convinced, because the parent is the one now going to pay fees for the other child who has got pregnant. So also to know that term from the parent that now the child has produced, now I pay more fees. Yeah. So rehabilitation is going to be across the board, and that program I've seen. So I can get more information about it, but it is with the means of education. Rehabilitate those who have been affected so they can go back to school.
Yes, thank you very much, Nelson. I think that was a very good response. My second last question to the both of you is going to be around the economy. And I'll begin with you, Robert Kakuru. Uganda's economy is largely an agricultural-led economy. You have 68% of the country's population practicing and partaking of the agriculture sector. But at the same time, this sector contributes about 37% of our gross domestic product, which is GDP. But at the same time, we know that there is something called climate change. The climate is continuously changing, which means that the weather patterns are changing, and therefore our farmers are going to be affected. At community level, what sensitization programs are there to ensure that our people plant enough trees, or if they cut the trees, they replace the trees that they have cut and preserve the environment so that there is a sustainability aspect to it all? Because we know that Uganda has a national development plan, but part of which embeds the sustainable development goals. But between me and you, we know that sustainability is about using the resources of today, but in a way that doesn't affect its existence for the future generations to come. So at community level, are we prepared enough to deal with the issue of climate change? And are we mobilizing our community to take heed of the negative effects of destroying our environment and how it affects our livelihoods in terms of agriculture, among its other sources of livelihood? So Robert, I'll begin with you, then Nelson, also you'll respond to the same question, then we shall move towards the conclusion. Yes, Kakuru.
Thank you very much, Moses. I think where I am right now, the districts within our Kidega region, first of all, it's very true that the economy, productivity of our people is still low, and it is still low because the inputs are not also available and sufficient for them to be productive. But also, our land, the land is no longer productive, it is exhausted. It is, when you are doing your geography, maybe at the O level, talking about Chigezi, that there is a lot of land fragmentation because of the high population, and therefore land here is an issue, and that raises even the cost for you to access a piece of land here, for you to do your agricultural activities or do any other economic activity. So and across the country, it's not now, it's not easy to access enough land where you can do agriculture activities for you to be productive as expected. So I want to say that we need to, the government needs to embark on sensitizing communities on how to use their small pieces of land to produce a lot. For example, I am happy when the president was talking, when he was saying that you can use your small land to be productive have their different different enterprises. For you, for example, have maybe torfe there. You can have different activities on that small piece of land, and don't only grow to consume, but also to sell and earn. I think that was very good. And about climate change, it is true that I think farmers are struggling. It is unpredictable when it will start raining, when it will stop raining. When I was growing up, for example, where I am, we knew that this month people must start preparing their gardens. The other month they will be planting. The other month they will be weeding. The other one is for harvesting. Now things have changed. And what is being done about climate change is to encourage every person at least to grow some trees, especially fruit trees, which are productive, so that you can take your fruits